July 14, 1918. The telegram arrives at Sagamore Hill. Quentin Roosevelt, shot down over France. 20 years old. Dead. For 34 years, Theodore Roosevelt buried grief and sacrificed everyone for greatness. The wife whose name he couldn't speak, the brother he destroyed, the nation he stole, the daughter he couldn't love fully. But Quentin's death breaks something that iron will cannot repair. Theodore is having lunch when confirmation arrives. "Quentin's dead," he says quietly. "Quentin's dead." Those who know him see immediately that something fundamental has broken. Quentin was always his favorite, the one with Theodore's energy but without the driven intensity, the one who could make his father laugh. Now Quentin lies in a French field, and Theodore sent him there. Friends visiting Sagamore Hill report the famous Roosevelt exuberance is gone. The boundless energy has faded. Theodore still writes, plans comebacks, meets visitors, but the light behind his eyes has dimmed. Wife Edith knows. Losing Quentin took the fight out of Theodore. The grief he's buried for decades finally surfaces, and this time he cannot transform it into achievement. The ghosts gather. Alice Lee, the wife erased from memory. 34 years, but the wound never healed. Elliot, the brother destroyed. 24 years since he died alone, branded insane. Columbia, the nation manipulated. Daughter Alice, still seeking love Theodore couldn't give. And now Quentin, the beloved son whose death Theodore cannot bury beneath determination. November 1918. Republican leaders approached Theodore about running for president in 1920. For years, this excited him, returning to the White House, completing his agenda, cementing his legacy. Now he declines. Since Quentin's death, he admits, the world seems to have shut down upon me. Thank you for watching this complete series. If these 5 chapters changed how you see Theodore Roosevelt and American history, please subscribe. We'll keep uncovering the brutal truths that textbooks hide. January 6, 1919. Theodore is at Sagamore Hill working on an article criticizing Wilson. He experiences breathing problems but insists he's fine. At 4 a.m., Edith wakes to check on him. He's not breathing. A blood clot reached his heart. Theodore Roosevelt dies at 60. The nation mourns. Flags at half-mast. Special editions chronicle his extraordinary life. He's praised as visionary, reformer, builder. The controversies, Panama, the brother destroyed, the wife's memory buried, barely mentioned. The question that haunts his legacy: does greatness require ruthlessness? Can empire building justify destroying those who stand in the way? Theodore believed yes. He believed achievements justified methods, that building American power made any sacrifice worthwhile. But in his final months, something changed. Quentin's death forced him to confront grief he couldn't weaponize. And perhaps Theodore finally understood the true cost of empire. The echoes reverberate still. The Panama Canal transformed global trade, but poisoned Latin American relations for a century. The Roosevelt corollary justified interventions for decades. The precedents Roosevelt established that American interests justify intervention in other nations are debated in every foreign policy discussion today. Alice Longworth outlived everyone until 1980 at 96. Eleanor Roosevelt became First Lady, never forgiving what Theodore did to her father. The illegitimate Roosevelt child disappeared into obscurity. Theodore Roosevelt's face is carved into Mount Rushmore alongside Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, immortalized in granite. But the real Theodore was never that simple. A man who loved deeply and buried that love when unbearable. A man who achieved magnificently and destroyed ruthlessly. A man who built an empire and paid for it with pieces of his soul. From Valentine's Day 1884 to January 6, 1919, this is the complete story. The tragedy that shattered him, the brother he sacrificed, the nation he stole, the daughter who rebelled, the son whose death broke him. These are the shadows of greatness, the echoes of empire, the true cost of being Theodore Roosevelt. Was Theodore Roosevelt a hero who built American greatness, or a man who sacrificed everything and everyone for power? Can we separate achievements from methods? Share your final verdict in the comments. And if you watched all 5 videos, you've experienced the complete untold story that history textbooks ignore. Subscribe for more brutal truths about power, the shadows behind greatness, the human costs of empire. We're just getting started.